Hello, fellow Dirt School students. My name is Christopher Baxter Box, or just CB Box for short. I am the brainchild of an experimental YouTube creator, which apparently qualifies me to come here. I hope we go on many wacky 22-minute misadventures together, and if you'd like to talk to me about anything, I'm all ears.
I can make a great boat out of this.
A boat? Hey, wait! What are you doing? Hey, no, wait! Okay, so, two things you'll be interested to know. One, the phrase, whatever floats your boat, does not apply to me. And two, oddballs is a thing that exists. So I've made my thoughts on the Odd1sOut very obvious in my previous video. I think he's got a vibrant personality, a simplistic but memorable style, and he can be pretty funny on occasions. I know the storytime animation community as a whole is really oversaturated, and I'm sure some of us are sick of seeing it everywhere.
Stupid, dumb, lame, dumb, nobody cares about your trip. Oh, cats!
But as one of the granddaddies of the trend who's been spouting stories since 2000 was a youngin', I think he holds up pretty well, and retains his title as one of the better ones. He's far from my favorite YouTuber, but I totally get why this Marshmallow Michelin Man managed to make millions in multiple manners. With that being said though, how well does a simple teller of life tales transition to making a full-fledged cartoon? I mean, this isn't just one of his hashtag Peed My Pants stories, this is an original narrative property, with plot and characters and homicidal toasters. It's gonna take more than a slideshow of relatability to pass the test here. Well, in this video, I'll be checking out the first season of Oddballs on Netflix and giving it a complete analytical rundown. Is it a barrel of fun or a lame generic borefest? Is it enjoyably odd or does it suck eggs? As always, if you have any thoughts on Oddballs or any thoughts on my thoughts, feel free to leave a comment below. But for now, let's check out the job this new showrunner did and see if I like it more or less than his old vids. Let's rock and roll! So the show revolves around your typical nudist marshmallow teenager, James, as he navigates his day-to-day life in the small town of Dirt. But his life is anything but normal, since he attends a school specially made for the children of famous scientists and the experiments that these geniuses have concocted. This leads to everyday adventures becoming insane cartoonish escapades, which usually conclude with the characters learning an important lesson alongside the audience. Sounds like a pretty good premise, right? And my description was easy to follow? Well, don't get used to it, since my first major problem with this show is that the premise, while intriguing, really isn't explained the best. Usually when a show has some kind of high concept, like a school full of unusual students or a town full of unusual residents, it's the job of the writers to explain to the audience what's going on in a clear and seamless manner. That way we can get right into the juicy meat of the series, which is getting to know the characters we'll be following. This is usually done with the first episode, or even just the intro if the backstory isn't super deep. For a good example, let's check out the two shows that Oddballs reminds me of the most. My Gym Partner's a Monkey and Clone High. Both of these shows pretty much tell you everything you need to know in the opening theme songs alone. For Gym Partner, we're told that this kid Adam used to go to a human school, but because his last name is Lion, he got transferred to an animal school. Going to this place is difficult, hijinks are gonna ensue, bada bing bada boom, time to visit the zoo. Clone High does an even better job, somehow telling you in a 30-second tune that a government organization dug up the bodies of famous historical peeps, cloned them into teens, and built a school for them to go to until they mature to use in an advanced military program. And what they don't tell you in the intro, they clearly explain right away in the pilot, especially during the first appearance of Principal Self-Insert Scudsworth. Simple and perfect. Now let's check out Oddballs. Well, the intro tells us basically nothing, except that this kid and this crocodile are destructive little scamps. There's gonna be a bit of fourth wall humor, which there is, and that's it. Honestly, this intro is more useless than watercolors underwater. In the first episode, the first line out of Max's mouth is that he, quote, slept like a failed genetic experiment gifted with human intelligence and voice. Okay, so we're told that Max is a genetic experiment, and we're even shown later on that his parents were just two scientists that performed painful tests on him, which contributes to his own messed up views on what parenting is like. Then in the second episode, we're shown that James's parents are scientists, and then finally we're introduced to the school that these two blockheads attend. So technically speaking, you could piece everything together like, oh, since Max is a failed experiment and James is the kid of a scientist, this must be a school for scientist kids and their experiments. But when you've got a show like this, especially a kid's show, I think it's better to establish your premise quickly and clearly so the audience can get on board right away. It wasn't done terribly or anything, I've just seen it done better in other shows. But credit where it's due, the show does use this goofy concept to crank out some pretty interesting plots. In fact, let's talk about some of them right now! Oh, for the love of... Would you hurry up? I've never been good with segues, just give me a sec. Anyway, as far as stories are concerned, longtime Odd1sOut fans will notice a lot of similarities between his newer videos and episodes of Oddballs. Heck, they almost follow the exact same structure. Most of the time, a modern O video goes as follows. James dumps his brain or heart out to us with one of his stray thoughts or hardcore beliefs taking center stage, followed by a colorful and well-illustrated story complete with grounded, relatable realism, and all ending with a little life lesson for the kiddos to learn from his cautionary tale. Almost every Oddballs episode is extremely similar to this. Just swap out grounded, relatable realism with zany, cartoonish antics, and you've got yourself a solid show structure. You got stories like a slime blob bully taking control of James's body to make him act like a jerk, a grandma AI program being taken out for a day on the town, James looking like an old man after donating too much blood which he uses to reap senior benefits, and my personal favorite, stay with me here, James rubbing deodorant on his face, which makes him sweat out of his eyes, something that his classmates confuse for crying, leading to his teacher signing him up for a competitive feels contest where he squares off against some Oran High School host club looking son of a gun, but ultimately throws the contest when he realizes his buddy's feelies are hurt, and they both cry literal crocodile tears in each other's arms. Can't say I've ever seen a show do that one before. There are definitely some run-of-the-mill plots, like the protagonist trying to get their annoying roommate to clean up their act, but most of them are pretty imaginative and tie in well with the lesson they're trying to convey. Though I'm giving you a massive, massive warning right now, do not let the first episode color your expectations for the whole show. Because the first episode of Oddballs is very, very awkward. The premise is fine, just two guys trying to raise a smart toaster like a baby to make the perfect breakfast, but the dialogue and jokes are a lot more cringe than they are later on. There are some plot points that don't make much sense, like claiming that no one's invented a smart toaster when there clearly are smart toasters that have been available for years, and the tone makes it feel like the writers really weren't sure what they wanted the show to be at first. With an opening that sounds like it came from a preschool show, a plot reminiscent of an average kid's show, and some pretty dark and disturbing moments that feel like they should be in a 14+ show. I mean, there's literally a scene where Max is bleeding out from a wound to the chest. Now, I'm sure everybody knows one of the golden rules of censorship.
If the blood is not red, then it's safe for my kid.
But seeing Max just gushing green blood, then taking the toast out of his wound and eating it, then more blood comes gushing out, and then he puts it back in, I don't know, am I the only one that thinks that's kind of messed up for a general audience show? It's probably just me, but I feel like they managed to balance the kiddie moments and the more adult humor much better later on, as opposed to here where they have parts that are either way too juvenile or a little too scary for kids. The animation and visual style of this show are a ton of fun. James's minimalist character designs lend themselves well to a nice, smooth, consistent flow of movement. There are a metric ton of great expressions and reactions to the weird goings-on of the world. So many that I had to add thumbnail face timestamps in my notes since there were so many awesome faces. The background characters are fun to point out, like this volcano girl and this cute little robot dude. Not as creative as something like Foster's or Wander, but pretty cool. There are even some mixed media bits, like James using his real-life hands at one point when he's formulating one of his plans.
Where are your fingers?
And seeing as this is a show by a big YouTuber, of course they threw in some Easter eggs for die-hard fans. Like James's blood type is O positive, which fans will recognize from his donating blood video, there's a cat on a book they read in episode 5 which is literally just Garfield from James's Garfield comics video, and there's even math graffiti on the walls in some alleyways, which is likely a reference to James wanting to be a math teacher once upon a time. Though, here's a random thought for you. Could you actually get arrested for drawing something like that? Or is there some gray area here? Well, this is technically vandalism, but I did learn something new. I'll give it a pass. And of course, there's one aspect of Oddballs that I had to save for last, which is the Oddballs themselves. I mean, we got entire separate videos introducing each of these cast members on Netflix's account, so they really wanted us to like these guys. And how are they in the show itself?
Not too bad.
James is your typical mischievous kid protagonist. He tries to come up with wacky schemes of the week when he's unhappy with something. He's a little full of himself, but overall a nice guy. And he might as well have soapboxes for shoes since he stands on them at least once or twice per episode. For some people, this might seem like James is using his OC as a mouthpiece for his own beliefs or whatever, but like I said before, the show is reminiscent of his old videos where long-winded speeches about personal opinions were just kinda his thing, so I see no problem with it. I'll admit that I do prefer James as a relatable storyteller over a kid show protagonist, but what he does do in the show is pretty fun. Also, he may or may not be a speciesist.
Each and every cutter is an animal!
Oh, James, how dare you! Max prefers the term reptilian American. You gotta be PC in this day and age, you jerk. Speaking of Max, he's James's best bud and your friendly neighborhood talking crocodile. I mean, every town's got one of those, right? While he mostly follows the tropes of the typical dim-witted best friend, he's honestly got a lot of charm to him. He has by far the funniest lines in the whole show, and the most sympathetic moments too. Heck, sometimes he does both at the same time.
The day I turn into a real boy? No, Max, that'll never happen.
Being part crocodile, his animal instincts can kick in occasionally for some decent laughs and even important plot points. And his voice provided by Julian Gant somehow manages to hit that Justin Roiland sweet spot where it's technically annoying but in a likable way, and it kinda grows on you after a while. Out of the main trio, he's easily my favorite. And then there's Echo, a girl that gets introduced in episode 4 and just kinda hangs around our two knuckleheads afterwards. She comes from a post-apocalyptic future where all processed food is a thing of the past. No pizza, no cereal, no french fries, no peanut butter. Okay, that one's not too big of a loss, but still. When she's not stuffing her cyborg cheeks full of donuts and ribs, she's basically playing straight man to the insanity that's happening around her. She's no stranger to cheating folks out of their cash through scams and business prospects, and she's usually pretty handy at saving the day thanks to her futuristic know-how, hover boots, and weird, sippy chicken AI-looking doodad. Overall, she's a decent character. I got a few laughs and smirks from her smugness, and I tend to like characters who are somehow always able to make a quick buck. She's not incredible or anything, but she could be fun at times. Also, Bliss Utonium called, she wants her color scheme back. And also to be in a good show. I'm not blown away by this cast or anything, as some parts of them do feel kinda cliched and overdone, but I think there's just enough to enjoy here. It's like those plastic bugs that you can make from that creepy crawler's molding oven. Yeah, they basically fit pre-made molds, but they have just enough unique colors for them to stand out on their own. Though my bugs always came out looking brown, so what do I know? The same can't be said, however, for the side cast, which are mostly just the molds. Aside from a few unique designs, there's almost nothing to the other characters. Like the unicorn goth girl is just a typical goth girl, the school bully is just a school bully, James's mom and dad are just a typical cartoon mom and dad, except the mom is kind of a health nut for some reason, and the grumpy restaurateur is just a grumpy restaurateur. Though I do like the fact that he wears a boot on his head and that boot also wears a hairnet, that gave me a chuckle. The only side characters that kinda stood out to me were Mr. McFly and Roxanne. Mr. McFly mostly comes off as the pathetic, spineless teacher type, but he has some pretty awesome moments, like shoving his victory in Smooth Jason's face and just beelining his car through an active construction site to get James home before his mom. Like, holy cow, look at that fly, fly, fly. Where he's going, he doesn't need roads. And Roxanne just kinda cracks me up for some reason. Having this gigantic sentient rock just sliding around and arresting people is really funny to me, and I don't know why. Plus, her chronic fear of paper is a really fitting quirk. You gotta wonder how a boulder of all things came to be an officer in the first place. I didn't choose the life of a cop. It chose me. Literally, I went to a geologist one day, you know what they found in me? Copper. And since then, my future has been set in stone.
Here's your drink.
I told you, no paper cups! Overall, it would be fair to call Oddballs flawed balls since it does have a lot of problems, but for James's first shot at a kid's show, this ain't half bad. The premise, while kind of poorly explained, is an interesting one. The stories are imaginative with a few clunkers here and there. The characters aren't revolutionary, but they do their job fine. And the visuals, aside from some overdone gags, are really clean and colorful. The effort that James and his crew put into this is very evident, and I'm glad that he was finally able to get this dream of his off the ground. With all that said though, what did you guys think? Do you see Oddballs as a masterpiece, a disgrace, or just okay like me? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and I hope to see you all real soon.